Oh, we're live now. Hi, everyone out there in what we colloquially call the Rayborhood. Thanks for coming to our first virtual event with Gus and Cecily Gamba. This is really exciting for us. You know, Gus is a sixth generation winemaker and owner of the. Oh, hey, Eric.
What?
I'm hearing myself.
Do you have the stream open? You gotta mute it.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry. I'm having my own technical difficulty here.
No worries.
Which one do I mute?
Oh.
Yeah.
You have the YouTube open.
Oh, it's because I have. Oh, I got it. Okay, here we go. Yay. All right, now we're good. Okay. Wow. Immediate snafu. Okay, so.
Not out of the way.
Well, I've got, like I said, I've got Gus and Cecily here from the Gamba family vineyards, and Etrusca is their other brand. Gus is a sixth generation family winemaker in Sonoma, specifically in the Russian River Valley. Cecily is his daughter who handles the sales and marketing for the winery. And like Gus, I just want to make sure, you know, you guys both have the opportunity to tell everybody out there about the history of the estate and current goings on. You're really one of the unique older families in the western part of Sonoma County, really doing Zinfandel like it was done at the, you know, like what I'm trying to get. It's like you're almost in your third century here. So you can say it better than I can. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Nate, I want to say thank you for having us. We really appreciate everything Ray's has done for Gamba over the years. And I'm joined by my daughter, Cecily, actually, is how you pronounce her.
Cecily, sorry.
No worries. But yeah, we're, you know, 6 generations in for me and
7th generation.
And for Cecily and my son Augie and daughter Natalia will be 7th, and so very proud of that. You know, it's kind of a cool story. You know, when my father came to this country, he met a gentleman and bought our estate ranch, which we also call MCM now. Because it was planted in 1900. Those are the Roman numerals for 1900. And the property was purchased on a handshake, which is kind of a cool thing. You don't hear about that happening anymore. But of course, later on, you know, everything was done legally. But what happened was my father became friends with Cesare Barbieri, who owned the property and helped plant it in 1900. And worked alongside of Cesare for many years, organically growing the grapes. They've been organically grown since 1900 and dry farmed since 1900. So that's very unique to the property as well. And so, you know, we've just continued that tradition. And now Gamba's, we're in our 20th year as a brand. The vineyard is celebrating 120 years. So it's a special time for us. So we're trying to look at all the silver linings around a challenging year, but it's a blessing for our family to be working with such a unique historic property, and because of the track record that it's developed with its wines over the years, and I say with its wines because it's really the location of this vineyard, the clone that's planted here. And I wish I could take all the credit as a winemaker, but that would not be true. It's really the grapes that I work with, that we work with here at Gamba, that really make these wonderful wines that we can all enjoy.
Awesome. I'll let everybody know that, you know, we'll elaborate a little bit more on the history of the estate, and then eventually get into the tasting portion of this. And then for everyone that's out there on YouTube that wants to then ask questions, we're going to do a Q&A section at the end, and just feel free to put those questions through the chat function, and we'll answer them here at the end. I'll remind everybody, I've got all the wines now are for sale that we'll be tasting tonight. There's an extremely finite amount of the rosé left. I'm doing roughly a 10% discount, a little bit better than 10% discount on all the wines tonight. They're available through our website at Raise Wine that everybody's should be familiar with. That's how you got here. So I'll do the soft sell at the end too. That being said, we covered you guys have been there a super long time. You talked about, and by super long time, I mean 1900 is pretty incredible. Prior to you forming the brand, at the turn of the 21st century, where did you folks sell most of your grapes to?
That's a great question. So there were many local wineries that my father sold grapes to here in the area, primarily in Russian River Valley. But we've always made wine at home, and that's where he taught me how to make wine, just as he learned from his father and my grandfather and his father. And so having that experience, it was really kind of cool for me as a young person to taste our family wine that we made at home, and then taste some of the commercially made wines at that time. And quite honestly, I always preferred the wine that my father made. Although the wineries that we sold grapes to over the years did a wonderful job, it just kind of planted the seed in my mind. And my father and I had a conversation about one day starting the Gamba winery. And so that's how we ultimately came to be as a brand.
And you mentioned that there's a specific clone that you folks work with. Do you want to, without getting super geeky, do you want to elaborate on how that works, specifically with Zinfandel, and as a farmer in the Russian River Valley, how you came about that clone, not only, and like what clonal variation means for especially someone who's a grape farmer?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And as much as well, first of all, we have a very old clone. It's generally considered old clone Zinfandel, and it's married to St. George rootstock. However, it's really not about the clones. And what I've learned over the years. I'm a board member for ZAP, which is Zinfandel Advocates and Producers, and we do a lot of research with UC Davis. And what really makes a big difference, it's not necessarily just the clone, it's where that vineyard is located. So it's kind of like real estate, location, location, location. You do have to have the right soil, the right climate, the right microclimate, and the right clone. But they all have to work in unison. And so it's not really the importance on the clone itself. You do want a clone that produces smaller berry clusters. There are some clones that produce larger berry clusters. There's more juice in the meat of the berry, less skin surface area, which means less pigment, less anthocyanin, which is the pigment that you find in the skin, and the varietal character gets sort of washed away with all of that water that you find in the meat of the berry. So the clone that we do have out here is a smaller berry clone. So you get a really nice intensity. Another great thing about the location of the estate vineyard and all of the other vineyards that I work with is that they share that sort of quality. So, I grew up in this business. So I used to be a field sampler long ago when I was.
Oh.
And so I was able to walk many, many vineyards, about 500 or so vineyards between Sonoma County, Napa County, Mendocino County, and really kind of keep a black book of all the best vineyards that were out there, in my opinion, just looking at the cluster formations, where they're located, all these different factors. And I ended up working with some of those vineyards today. So I feel very blessed to be working with some of these legendary vineyards. They truly are legendary vineyards because they produce such a high and consistent quality of fruit. And that's what every winemaker really needs is the fruit. I mean, the fruit is what makes the wine. So the winemaker is simply the caretaker. And as long as you have those raw materials to start with, you have the potential to make a great wine. And I've been lucky in that sense.
How well, and I'll do this just because I know someone already chimed in with the question. It was the one I said was going to happen. So so it doesn't get dominated at the end. Well, do you want to address, this is from Rebecca Arnell, who's a great customer and used to come to all the live things we did at Ray's. So I'll address her question right away. How are they doing with the wildfires? ?
Well, thank you for
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we appreciate it. It's been tough. It's been a tough year. And as I was explaining to Nate earlier, the proximity to the fire, the proximity of the vineyard to the fire really has a very big impact on how the fires affect the fruit. The farther away you get, the better it is. But it's still a problem because taint can develop in the vineyards. Compounds coming out of the smoke, out of the fire, can get absorbed into the leaves and into the grapes themselves, and affect the phenols in the wine, which are the components that affect the aroma, the texture, and the flavor. And we've been very fortunate in that we are located in a swath here that really has a marine layer that has protected us quite a bit. And it's still, so the jury's sort of out is the best way I can answer your question. You can't really determine how affected you are until you complete all of your fermentations. And taint may not even develop, after some time in the bottle. But what we've been conducting is sensory evaluations, and that's very important to determine what's going on in the wine right away. And so far, everything's been clean for everything that I've produced, and a lot of my neighbors I've been talking to as well are experiencing clean fermentations and clean flavors coming from their wines. But again, what happens are some of the compounds, they attach to sugars in the wine, they get bound up and they don't release themselves until sometimes later on. So that's why you kind of have to tread carefully here because there's a lot more research that has to be done on smoke taint. We know some things, but there's a lot more to learn. So, but I can tell you from what we've produced so far this year that things are tasting good from our sensory evaluations.
Oh man, that's super good to hear because wow. And I know a lot of people are going through a really rough time out there. And
yeah, it's been a tough year, I got to say. Yeah, but we're doing everything we can to mitigate the problems. There are certain things that we can do in the cellar to help bind some of those compounds and pull them out of the wines. But at this point, we have to just make objective analysis, of what we're working with. And like I said, fortunately for us, it's looking pretty positive so far. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. So,
I have a question I want to make sure we address. It's always so interesting to me as now, especially like the last 20 years, as the kind of the ascendancy of the popularity of Pinot Noir in the Russian River Valley, that you're one of the few people there. I think if like you guys in the Martinellis, especially, two come to mind, of the ability to still have like, old vines there that you're able to work with that never got grafted over to something else or replanted or totally, you know, or just like your vineyards didn't change over the course of the last 120 years. What were some of the things that prevented that from happening? You know, that's what I'm.
That's a great question. And just so you know, I can throw a rock and hit Martinelli Winery practically sitting. They're a close neighbor, and they do produce some great wines. Yeah, there's a couple of different things. You know, so through Prohibition, you know, a lot of the grapes were sold for juice, and they went away in rail cars in some cases like this. But it sort of, you know, kept the income coming in for some of these farmers. So some of the vineyards were able to survive through that period, and then moving in through up closer towards our times. The advent of white Zinfandel really helped keep the vines in the ground. But prior to that, you know, in the 60s and 70s, you know, these Zinfandel vineyards were producing these huge, just monster wines that were really sort of in fashion at the time, and that kept them in the ground. And then moving later on towards white Zinfandel, that kept the vines in the ground. But what you have is a lot of growers constantly chasing their tails and trying to, you know, follow market trends and things like that. Well, some of the farmers weren't like that. My dad certainly wasn't one of those guys, you know, and the Martinellis weren't those kind of people, you know. But if it was like, oh, you know, Chardonnay's the thing to do now, everybody pulls it up, plants Chardonnay, and then, you know, you got to wait 3 years or 3 leaves before they actually start to produce, and then something else. There's another sort of, you know, the wine of the moment, and so there's been a lot of growers chasing that. And, you know, here in Russian River Valley, you know, I'm surrounded by I think it's about 400 acres of Pinot Noir. And this has really become Pinot Noir Alley in here. You know, if you name all of the top Pinot Noir producers, they're my neighbors. And, you know, there's a great reason for that, just because it's a wonderful area to grow Pinot Noir. But I've got news for you. The Zinfandel's been happy in this dirt for 120 years. And my dad recognized that, and so he left it in the ground. Lucky for me, it was his favorite wine to drink, and so that helped too. So here we are, and I am so thankful for it.
Oh man, yeah, totally. It's so interesting to me, kind of as I've been in the wine industry for 20 years now, to see that happen and the ascendancy of Pinot Noir in the Russian River Valley. And I've always been somebody who's loved Russian River Valley Zinfandel too, and I'm just glad. You know, I think everybody watching this probably is glad that you got to hang on to it too. Do you want to talk about kind of the two brands you have and the points of differentiation between Gamba Family Vineyards and then Etrusca, and how the impetus of you know, both of those? Sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Gamba, of course, you know, is close to my heart, and you know, our family's been involved with this vineyard. You know, so I learned to walk in this vineyard. So you know, when we created Gamba, it was all about Old Vine Zin, and we kind of knew we wanted to dedicate the brand to Old Vine Zinfandel. We knew we had a very special property. So we focused on Zinfandel, and we continue to focus on Zinfandel today, because Gamba is essentially synonymous with a Zin house, and that's where I want to keep it. Of course, we produce a little bit of Petit Gras. We do some dessert wine and a couple of other little special things that if you come out to the winery, you'll see. But primarily, we're a Zin house, and I wanted to keep it that way. And so we talked about creating another brand, just so we can spread our wings a little bit. We had a lot of folks asking us if we produce certain other varietals. And so reaching far back into our history, we discovered that it was the ancient Etruscans that were the first to plant wine grapes on the Italian peninsula. And that was something that I thought is really cool. And so I just started to dig a little bit deeper into it. And then we together started to discover all of this wonderful artwork produced by the Etruscan culture, and all these other fascinating aspects to it. And so there's a real great story attached to it. And it's a way of paying homage to why I'm doing what I do today, why our family gets to create these wonderful wines and share them. And then we get to tell the story with each wine. And what I would like to do is continue the program. We've got Rosé, we've got Sauvignon Blanc, we've got Pinot Noir, we've got a Cabernet Sauvignon, we've got a red wine blend. So we've got all these different things that we don't have under the Gamba brand. And what I thought I'd do is take it a step further, just with the whole family aspect of it and discovery of our history, naming the wines after my family members, my children and my wife. So the rosé that we're going to be tasting, yes, the Natalia rosé, which is my youngest daughter, Natalia, and I've got a Chardonnay that I named for Cecily. It's called Cecilia. And I've got a Sauvignon Blanc named after my lovely wife, Paulette. My mom refers to her as Paoletta because my mom still has a very thick Italian accent. So the Sauvignon Blanc is known as Paoletta. So it gives me an opportunity to really kind of share not only the history of the Etruscans and our place in all of that. My mother and father both being from Italy, it really gives me a great honor to pay homage and create a brand like that. And it's just a lot of fun. So, but thank you for asking. I mean, every label has a story, and it's just really, really fun to work with. And we get to work together as a family on this project, and it's a very, very special project. They're very limited production wines, and we get to explore all these different varieties that are really high quality grapes that I have a lot of friends that work with, and now I get to actually share in some of these wonderful wine grapes that they have to create these small productions of trusted wines.
Yeah, we had, and we still have some of the Sauvignon Blanc currently in stock. And I don't want to deviate too much from a wine we're not tasting, but I appreciate your take on that because you have a style that it's a Sauvignon Blanc that's kind of uniquely Californian while still being dry in style and not either being like a kind of Loire copycat nor being the extremely kind of polarizing, New Zealand style too. So I love that wine too. So thank you for making that.
Okay, I just want to say one thing about that since you brought up the stuff. It's clone one, which and the clusters can fit just in the palm of my hand.
Oh wow!
Small clusters, and really the aim was to create a more true expression of the fruit rather than a grassy or hay-like wine, or to try to do a highly acidic version, which is more of the European style. And it really it was really a labor of love, and I appreciate that you mentioned that you enjoy it because it was really fun to make.
Yeah, and I don't want to dominate this with my subjective take on things. I also love that you guys are an organic producer, but at the same time, you make like what I find to be like intrinsically Californian wines. You're not backing away from like making unctuous, rich, full-bodied red wines, or you put fruit at the forefront, and they're visible in your wines. Where so many organic and quote unquote natural producers that I currently deal with now are shying away from that style. Do you without making this, without deviating too much, do you kind of have a feelings or a say about that?
Yeah, and I think the world of wine is a wonderful place, and it's full of different experiences, and you can discover so many different things. And what I believe is that you should land on and buy and enjoy what you like to drink. And I look at it as I make what I like to drink. And to me, winemaking is about capturing fruit and freshness And if there are layers of spice and other components that come along with it, depending on what you're working with, that's a wonderful thing. And so I'm not necessarily driving at producing a certain unctuous style. What I'm trying to do is work with the best vineyards I can possibly get my hands on, and really allowing the vineyard to express itself. And as a grower, we don't push our vineyards, so we prune them back pretty severely. And what that does, it allows the vines to really feed the fruit. There's a certain amount of carbohydrates that are in the roots that feed up into the fruit. So we want to make sure these vines are old. So most of the ones I work with, and that's part of my mission in life, really, is to preserve some of the history we have, the wonderful California history with some of these wonderful old vine vineyards. And you really want to treat them gingerly. But when you do, you come up with this fruit that's just amazingly concentrated and just so delicious. And what I try to do is just take that freshness and beauty that I taste in the vineyard and translate it in the most unadulterated way into the bottle. And that's by being very judicious with the aging program, what I choose for my barrel aging regimen. Sometimes I want to add a little more lumber, but sometimes I just want to let the fruit express itself. The acidity has to be there to lift everything and keep that freshness alive. So there's all these various things that you have to pay attention to. But again, I'm just lucky to be working with these vineyards that can produce wines like that.
Yeah, and that said, you know what? I know Wisconsinites, and we're a thirsty group. And I usually, when I do this live, I always make sure to let everybody start drinking relatively right away. So why don't you guys, I'm letting you lead the tasting part of this. Dip into it, please, and let's. I'm sure everybody out there is already probably double fisting it at this point. So yeah, so take it away. There's lips smacking and glasses getting tilted back. So Gus, what do you want to say about the Etrusca, the Natalia Rosé? Is this weird that I'm holding it up? I love the label, actually. Yeah.
So there's three primary objectives in my winemaking for the rosé. One of the considerations is achieving a beautiful color. The other is in mouthfeel and texture, and the third is in aroma. And so I think we've kind of ticked all those boxes here. I feel, again, we were able to achieve a freshness with this because this is an intentional rosé. So it's a direct to press rosé. It's not a second thought rosé where I've taken a tank and bled the tank and created a rosé out of a red wine. It's not a secondary wine. It's an intentional rosé that was picked with the proper acid levels and proper Brix levels to achieve a rosé of this style. And we gently pressed it out, and then we gave it a nice cool fermentation, and after that it oxygenated in neutral French oak, and then it went directly to bottle. And so I think by doing that, I was able to capture those primary objectives that I was after. The other thing that's interesting about this wine is that what we've done is we've taken Alicante Bouschet, Carignan, a little bit of Petit Syrah, and some Zinfandel, and blended it together. And we've got this really wonderful flavor profile of fruit coming through that is sort of layered and gives that sort of midsection of the wine that sort of nice texture. And then, of course, the acidity adds that nice lifting brightness to the finish. So it's a really enjoyable rosé. I'm very proud of it. And I don't know, Cecily, do you have any comments on the rosé?
Yeah, I mean, I think because you do that intentional blending and direct to press, you get a lot of good complexity with the fruits on it. It's not just one fruit kind of simple wine. It's really something complex that you can really enjoy. but it's also got that freshness that you want in a rosé. So you can really enjoy it. It's got a nice layered midsection and a great mouthfeel. Really enjoyable on its own, but you could also pair it with food too, which is a really nice thing about it.
Yeah, I do you want to elaborate, maybe Gus, a little bit why, like two of those grape varieties are probably things that not everybody's really familiar with, but it's interesting that you've got the four of them and that they're all what I always think of as like kind of like the historic, red grape varieties of especially Sonoma and Northern California, as opposed to, Cabernet Merlot, once again, Pinot Noir, we get, Alicante Bouschet, you don't see a whole lot of anymore. And the same with, Carignan, but there's some really great old vine material, especially where you are, to deal with.
Yeah, and so, looking at producing a rosé, I kind of took a look at a few different things, and I thought, okay, if I assemble the Carignan, will add a little bit of spice to the wine. The Alicante Bouschet also, it has a really nice texture. So it's a very sort of leathery texture, and it's, as some people may or may not know, it's one of the varieties, and there aren't many where the juice is actually
red, yeah,
because
yeah,
most
dark,
wine,
yeah,
most dark skin grapes, they have clear juice, and they're pulling all of the pigment from the skin, the anthocyanin, which is the pigment, and that's how they color up. But Alicante, you have to be careful how much you add into the press, because it'll start to give you red wine right out of the press.
I'm sure.
Be a little scary. So you kind of have to watch that. But so there's a texture element there. And then Petit, of course, it's also a structure. It's more of a structure and an acidity type of component. And then the Zinfandel kind of rounds off all of those kind of fruit characteristics. And so you've got a lot of different things going on there. But it's all very delicate. It's all elegant and refined. So it's kind of a unique expression in that sense. There we have it.
I've got somebody out here who goes by Grandpa Amerson asking why French oak.
Well, first of all, the oak component it's neutral, so it's essentially a vessel for micro oxygenation. So it's really not lending any of what the traditional oak component is into a table wine. And French oak is known for producing vanilla characters and other characters in red wines, but for this project, they just happen to be French oak barrels, and they're neutral vessels, and it allowed me to just achieve that micro oxygenation that I was looking for. And so that's really all it has to do with there. Of course, as you get into winemaking, there's all the choices of all the different cooperages and toast levels and things like that, but that's probably a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm also assuming that probably gets you a less reductive product in the end too. So it's more ready to drink right upon release. That's what I loved about this over the summer too, having this. And it's like, those who still have some, because we're inevitably going to sell out of this. I mean, like, we got the last half a case left, but man, I've like, this has been a go-to wine for me with like pretty rich, like pasta salad with like lots of like things that like pecorino and mozzarella. Like, it was a rosé that could handle like pretty strong cheeses, and I loved that about it all summer.
Yeah,
so
it also pairs really well with some more bright, delicate dishes. If you have just like a citrus salad, if you have some beans, and you have some tangerine slices in there, and you throw some pumpkin seeds in there, and some feta cheese or something like that. A little bit of cracked pepper.
Getting hungry.
Yeah, me too.
You'll find that this wine just really kind of finds its way into a great pairing with all kinds of dishes. So if you haven't paired it with foods, it's great to enjoy on its own. But if you haven't paired it with food yet, grab a bottle, sit down, prepare a pasta salad or a green salad, and enjoy a glass of wine out in the sunshine.
Delish. Man, I always feel like this is anticlimactic. Well, not climactic, but like, I think we should. Do you want to segue into the family ranches?
Sure, sure. Okay, so as we move into family ranches, the family ranches is a cuvee of Zinfandel. So it's from several different ranches found all over Russian River Valley. And what we have here is a wine that is created from a lot of small ranches that really deserve to be bottled on their own. But because there's so little, in some cases, of these wines, I decided to assemble them together, and that's how we came up with Family Ranches. And for 2018, which was a phenomenal year, it was a great year, we created a wine that's actually really nice and dense. We've got a beautiful sort of opaque garnet color here, and the aromas are of dark berry, and we pick up a little bit of barrel toning there as well, and that expresses itself like it's a little bit of sandalwood, and so and then when you get into the mid palate of the wine, you really start to pick up some of the contributions from some of the wonderful old vines. It's typically a blend of old vines and younger vine blocks, but you have these wonderful layers that are developing of spicy qualities. So you've got some of the dark fruit there, but and then you've got all these wonderful background spices there. And then of course at the finish, there's that sort of mouth-watering, lifting acidity that will also allow this wine not only to be enjoyed on its own, but to be paired with food and really show as a wonderful complement to food.
Wow, nice. Are there some people like particularly that you always work with when doing the assemblage, or when just from putting this together, you're going to get fruit from consistently from the same folks, or you have long-term contracts with certain people? Or
yeah, that's a great question, and a lot of the growers that we work with have actually come to us. And the Star Road, which we're going to be tasting next, originally was the Morato Vineyard. It was owned by Robert Morato, and he was on vacation with his wife. He happened to stop somewhere in a wine shop and grab a bottle of Gamba, and he tasted our wine and absolutely fell in love with it. And while he was actually on a cruise, called me and said, "Hey, I just had a bottle of your wine. I own a vineyard in Sonoma County, and could we meet?" And so again, what was kind of neat about that situation was, we met out at his vineyard. I walked the vineyard, fell in love with it, and on a handshake, just like my father did so many years ago, we said we're going to be working together here. And so that's one component in this wine. Also, a little bit of the estate goes in this wine. Over the years, some of the vineyards have moved around, shuffled around a little bit, but we've had Fistolera, the debris of Winberry property in this, which is over on Piner and Piner Heights area. Again, another area where you've got some of these wonderful old vine vineyards from some top producers. They're just great grapes to work with. The old Chris Ranch was in here at one time. So there's a lot of these little vineyards that kind of have come and made their way through family ranches over the years. But again, it's a matter of walking some of these vineyards, talking to the growers, seeing where they are with their vineyards, really trying to work closely with them to really bring their vineyards and some recognition that they deserve, and working closely with them too to make sure that they stay healthy and produce the best grapes they possibly can to make these wines. So that's a great question, and again, I'm lucky to be working with all these different components that make up this wonderful cuvee of Zinfandel.
Yeah, I've found too, when we we moved into the 18 vintage. Probably a couple months ago, maybe not even. So this is a pretty fresh release for you. How do you feel? Like, is this end up being your largest production wine under the Gamba label, typically?
Typically it is, but again, large, I mean, that's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to give everybody a sense of scale, like.
I mean, if you're talking about, the single vineyard wines are typically under 500 cases, 500 cases. And then this wine, being the larger is, 600 to 800 cases.
Wow.
That's not a lot of wine, especially when, it's going around and allocated across the country. Everybody sort of gets their share, and then we move on to the next vintage. But again, it's really not a focus on quantity; it's quality. Mm-hmm. And if those numbers, and that's again just like for family ranches, even though it's a cuvee, I mean, everybody needs to make the cut for to get into the wine. So that's why you're going to have a little bit of variation in terms of the case production releases, just because we only want to work with the absolute best, hand sorted fruit that has really, made the grade. And the standards are pretty strict around here. So we want to make sure, it's our name on the label. So that's really our pledge to our customers, that you are going to receive the absolute best expression of whatever wine it is that you choose that has Gamba on the label or Etrusca from year to year, year in and year out.
So this is a really great related question. Someone under the Maxim S, how long would you recommend cellaring your Zins?
Another great question. And that varies, sometimes a little bit because, some years and some vineyards want to express themselves in ways where I don't want to steer the vineyard. I want the vineyard to steer me. So some of the wines will be bigger. They'll be more, as you said earlier, unctuous. And other times, you'll have a wine that's a little more structure, a little bit more tannic, and perhaps a little bit different stylistically. So for the wines that are sort of pushing the envelope a little bit, those are the ones that are going to live hard and fast, but they are a lot of fun. They're like getting on Wizard roller coaster and have them crank it up to 11, and those are really fun wines. And but then when you have the wines that have a little bit more structure, a little more acidity, those are going to be the ones that are going to be driving out a little bit longer. So just to answer the question, I would say anywhere from, for the ones that are going to live hard and fast, 5 years to 7 years, kind of pushing it only if they're really cellared properly. And, some of the other wines, I just enjoyed with my family a 2004, just a few months back, and it was still, it was in the pocket, but it was still, showing beautiful fruit, lively acidity. And here we are 16 years later, and that's a Zinfandel. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not going to recommend people hold on to them for that long, but I'm going to say 7 to 10 years for sure. 12, I'll even push it out to 12 with some of the wines that I've been tasting, some of the older vintages. And they're really doing well because the wine chemistry allows them to, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, wow, beautiful, great, good. Hey, man, that answer satisfies me. So.
Again, just like if you taste the wine, you're there at Ray's and you've tasted the wine, and this is the wine that's just, it's really it's just really round and fleshy and showing really good fruit. That wine, it's got a proportionate amount of acidity, but you can taste it's softer, so it may not live as long. But then when you have another wine, it shows, gives you a little more tannin. Again, polished tannin though, very approachable tannin, and some nice acidity to kind of give lift. Then you've got a wine that you're going to be able to hang on to for a little bit longer there.
I was impressed with this, especially the 2018 Family Ranches, because I think there's a lot of customers and just people that, that buy wine of this caliber, that are Zinfandel fans. And I'll say as a whole, I think a lot of them, know that they're going to be able to drink the wine right away. But even this, to me, had the mark of, like, it's obvious that you tasted this to put it together to be an approachable wine, yet it's still got structure and it's completely fermented dry, and it's got a backbone and tannin and depth to it, but it's still, the word balance is always, I feel like, really, really overused. But this is a hedonistic wine, but it's a wine of purpose too, and there's intent behind it. And all across the board, your wines show, but this is right out of the gate. I thought this was, oh wow, I see what you're doing here, and it's really gorgeous. So,
well, thank you. And I think you hit it right on the head there. You hit the nail right on the head, Nate, because this is one of those wines that you can pull it right off the shelf, take it home, enjoy it with dinner, and you know what? You didn't rob the cradle.
Yeah.
You really enjoyed it. And then, but this wine gives you an option. Let's say you tuck it away back in the back of your cellar, you forget about it, and then you stumble upon it, years down the road. Well, it's not going to be too late for that wine. You're going to just pick up different characteristics. The fruit, I think, will still be there. It won't be as vibrant as when it was young, but it will pick up some more of the complexity from the aging regimen. So you're still going to win. And but thank you. And thanks for recognizing that. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. Well, for the sake of brevity, which isn't my strong suit, we can talk about the Star Road now. Yeah. Am I doing this good, Eric? You like that? Oh, okay.
Star Road is it's a hillside vineyard. There are some lower hill areas to it. Planted in 1920. Again, it's just very intense. The vineyard really struggles for water, and again, it's a properly, the crop load is properly managed on it, and it really gives you these wonderful characteristics. And I want to have Cecily comment on both of these red wines here in just a minute. But what I'm tasting here, well, first of all, it's a very perfumey aroma that I get here from the Star Road. You get a wonderful intensity from this vineyard, and a lot of times it goes into kind of dark fruit, more blackberry and more plum and things like that. And the color, though, is a little bit, can maybe deceive a little bit, even though it's very rich and intense and dark. It's not quite as opaque as, and I'm splitting hairs here, but it's not quite as opaque as the Family Ranches. But and it's more ruby hued, I guess, sort of ruby garnet hued, whereas the Family Ranch is more of a darker garnet. But what you get in the midsection of this wine is a real pop of fruit. I mean, the fruit is really, shines through.
Gus, how do you feel about 17 as a vintage and 18 as a vintage?
Well, I think we were very, very lucky in 17, because as everyone knows, that was the first year of the fires. It was the Tubbs fire, and fortunately for us, we had 95% of our vineyards in. The one vineyard that was left out, we didn't produce that year. I did not produce that wine that year, so we lost one vineyard that year. So I feel very lucky. And being that we got all of the wines to bed in tank before the fire started, there was really no concerns with smoke taint or anything like that. So we really dodged a bullet in 2017. And I think, I think it was October 8th when the fire hit. we were all done. And so, you know, we were very lucky. So the season for us that year was actually a great season. It was a wonderful textbook growing season. And then of course we're followed up with 18, which was just phenomenal all the way around. I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a bad wine with 18 vintage attached to. You know, there were some vineyards that were left out during the fires in 17, and you know, I haven't tasted any of the wines that have suffered, but I do know that there were vineyards out there that hadn't been crushed yet. So that sort of being said about 17, 18, of course, you know, I just think was one of the most wonderful vintages to work with. I mean, it was just great all the way around. And if you go onto our website and you just click on one of the 18 wines, you can pull up all the data. I go over pretty meticulously the whole season on our data sheets. And you can read about the season as well as the fermentations and the wines for any of these vintages that we're tasting. And then 19 as well. I mean, you know, another great vintage, and without getting too far into all the specifics, just really some great vintages to work with back to back. And I think that, you know, we've had a lot of real luck, you know, here, even though we've had a lot of bad luck in wine country in recent times.
Yeah.
I like to focus on the positives, and we were able to produce some wonderful wines, and that always brings a smile to my face. So,
Hey, well, yeah, and thank you for it. I think, is there anything else you want to add? Because I think we can start to open this up to just if there's broader questions.
sure. Well, you know, what I'd like to do actually is ask Cecily her opinions on the last two reds. I'm just going to put her toes on the fire a little bit here. What do you think?
No, I think you explained them really well. I think, you know, I think you know what you're doing a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. But I just wanted to add about on the star, you were talking about how it has that bright fruit. But there is that layered spice in there and a little bit of that toffee. And
Yeah.
I think you were saying that
On the
comes
finish.
kind of, the finish coming from the
Yeah, I get
oak
that.
to it. So I think it's important to just kind of note kind of that complexity there. It's really unique. And this is my favorite.
Yeah.
I love them all, but the star is just phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, that's from the barrel toning that you mentioned there. Actually, that sort of expression of toffee that you get sort of after the wine finishes, you kind of get that that sort of, again, it's that, I guess you can call it unctuousness. I'm gonna go.
New word.
You don't want to dig into like barrel lactones or anything like that. You know, I mean, you can put it out there if you want to. You know, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the barrel program is an interesting one. You know, I think we should save that for a future.
Sure.
That's actually very involved too, because
Yeah.
you know, the aging regimen is a very important part of all this. Although it's considered more of a background spice, just like a chef. You know,
Sure.
you go out, you get the freshest veggies, and you get the best cuts of meat or freshest seafood you can, and you try not to mask it. You just want to sort of bring something to the table there that's going to give an extra dimension to it, and that's kind of what the barrel aging program is here at Gamba. We're not trying to mask anything. We're trying to just sort of embellish a little bit without overdoing it. And so, but you know, sometimes you get an expression like that comes out just depending on the level of toast, you know, the cooperage that you're using. You know, you got you know, toasted heads and toasted staves and you know, different places where the wood's coming from, giving you all these different expressions. And it's always wonderful to see that it's expressed in a way that kind of, you know, you hear something from somebody and it's like, wow, you know what? Absolutely, that's just it. Because sometimes you're tasting it and you're not really focusing on it, but then all of a sudden somebody brings it up and then you're like, wow, how it hits you right in the face, and it's like, wow, that's what I really dig about this wine.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I always feel like I really like when Zinfandel does have a little barrel influence to it, because to me it can, especially when it's younger, it can really be a great counterpoint to the fruit. in a good way, especially when one doesn't dominate or the other. So I want to make sure that folks, if there's like, we're free to send questions out if you want to, or I'm going to keep throwing them out because I have tons and I won't stop. So if anybody has anything out there they want to ask, feel free to type away. I'll keep going. That being said, are there other producers you really love too? And they don't have to be Zinfandel producers that you drink at home, or you're always anxious to be like, wow, whenever you travel, you're like, I seek this thing out or that thing, you know?
You know what I love to do is whenever we go somewhere, at least what I used to like to do, I mean, we haven't done it in a while, but I'm sure we'll be able to do it again someday, is, when we go to a restaurant, I love to, I love to talk to, the wine buyer or the som or whoever's there at the restaurant, or maybe the owner, whoever's in charge of their list. I just love to chat with them and have them bring me what they like.
Sure.
And, what have you tried lately that you really love? And I love putting my 100% trust in somebody like that, because that gives you that sense of adventure and wonderful experience of discovery in the world of wine. And I don't think people get all anxious sometimes when they go into a restaurant, like, oh no, what should I order? Or should I be this and that? Let the person working there do their job and talk to you a little bit about what your likes and dislikes are in wines, and then present you with something that you may have never tasted before and you absolutely fall in love with and go home and buy a case of.
Yeah, for sure. I love it too. I mean, I think it's the thing that keeps me excited about wine is that it's no matter how long you've been doing it, there's the experiential aspect of it, and there's always that next new thing. And I share with your enthusiasm for that. I have another question is, what do you feel? Do you sometimes decant Zinfandel or aerate it in any way, or do you feel like that adds a dimension to it, whether the wine is, especially younger wines sometimes?
Sure. I mean, I don't think that hurts. Sometimes, when a bottle is first opened, and this could be any wine really that we're talking about now, will benefit from a little bit of aeration. It just needs to breathe a little bit. Sometimes, a wine is going to be closed in, or it will have an aroma that really isn't a true expression of what the wine is. And to decant it, it's certainly not going to hurt. But one thing I would advise everybody is that when you first open a bottle of wine, taste it. Don't go straight to the decanter. A lot of people just go straight to the decanter. Yeah. And what you're doing is you're sort of cheating yourself out of that first taste that, gives you another sort of facet of what that wine was like, in the bottle. So, and then of course, when it breathes and it opens up, it'll change during the course of dinner or the course of the conversation or what have you. And then, pay attention to what's happening with it. You can, and one thing I really love about wine is, you can have a family gathering and, there could be discussions all over the table. And then if a certain bottle is opened and people, get around to tasting it, all of a sudden it gets quiet. And then the conversation starts to turn to the wine. And I think that, as a producer, we've had phone calls and emails in the past that have been wonderful surprises of people telling us, hey, we've had this gathering and the wine was open, and all of a sudden, the conversation turned to the wine. And just to be a part of that family experience somewhere, just to have that little contribution in people enjoying each other's company is so fulfilling as a winemaker. It's one of the things I love the most about what I do.
And that's what it's all about too, right?
Right.
Just bringing people together and, sharing stories and a good time over something beautiful.
Oh, you guys you're pretty sweet people. That's why I miss doing this live. Oh my gosh. There are some questions. Rebecca Arnell again says, given the wildfires now and other climate change, what can we expect to see with grapes from this region in the coming years?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure I have the best answer for that.
It's a big one.
It's
Yeah.
a big question, and I think that one deserves a lot of thought and a lot of contribution from a lot of people that are in this business. I think as far as I know, I mean, is what's happening today gonna change? I think it will. Things will change. I think temperatures will change. The Earth has gone through temperature changes and ice ages and all kinds of things throughout its history, and and I'm sure that that we as people contribute to things like climate change. However, I think that in my lifetime, at least as far as I have to worry, I think we'll be able to make it fine through the remainder of my tenure as a winemaker
and
here.
we'll adapt and grow as things come up too.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and then Cecily will probably take it from there, but she's already done it. So it's a matter of adapting, and where certain varieties will grow best may change in the future, and I think we'll just slowly adapt to it. And I don't think it's going to be detrimental to anything or anybody. It's just that we have to grow and change as we encounter these challenges.
Good answer. And then there's Terry Amerson says, she's like, where exactly is your vineyard? We were looking at a Sonoma map. The label says Santa Rosa.
Right.
Yeah.
So Santa Rosa, I mean, going through the Sonoma County permitting processes in Santa Rosa, and I have alternating premises here that I operate right out of. So the vineyard is here. We have the winery here, but we also have production facilities that are off of property. So
mainly West Santa Rosa.
Yeah, West Santa Rosa is where we are.
Yeah.
We kind of technically fall in Windsor, is where but we're actually nowhere near Windsor. So it's kind of a little complicated. So we are in Russian River Valley. We're outside of the small town of Fulton. We're just west of the small town of Fulton, about a mile and a half or 2 miles west of the small town of Fulton. So if you're looking on a map and you look west, you could see it on Google Maps where we're located. And really, we're lucky in that we're surrounded by literally thousands of acres of vineyards here. So there's fire breaks all around us, and there's our proximity to the Pacific Ocean gives us this natural air conditioning, but we do have enough heat units to ripen Zinfandel. It just happens to be this sort of little pocket, like I mentioned earlier. It's location, location, location. We happen to be blessed with this wonderful location, and but that's where if you want to find us on the map, that's where you go. You can look just west of the small town of Fulton in northern, just north of Santa Rosa.
So, and then Maxim S again says, love your wines. What single vineyards do you produce? I had both Star and Missana. Any others?
Well, there's the estate, of course, which is the MCM now.
Yep, and we do have the MCM here at Ray's, and that's available currently here. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the wine probably closest to my heart. But let me see. So now I think between Star Road, the Missana Ranch, which is the original Bastoni Ranch planted in 1905. The family ranches is the cuvee. Am I missing something here? No, I think I think that covers it. It really kind of I've kind of toyed with putting some others up as single vineyard wines because they really do merit the single vineyard designation. There's just not enough of the wine, and I think I get myself into more trouble than I would benefit by releasing these really small productions, and they don't get everywhere they probably need to be. And so some of those end up in the family ranches, and that's what makes that family ranches so spectacular.
That's a really great segue into the next question, which is from Kelly Mangan. What are Cecily's challenges for marketing a small winery?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it makes it easier that we have such a great product to work with, and that, it's easy to tell our story, easy to kind of have that passion behind it. I think people look for that genuine honesty and passion behind a brand, and that's really what, we have here. So that makes my job a little easier. Trying to, use the old ways of marketing, traditional ways, and, a lot of word of mouth, but also trying to kind of step into, the world we're living in now with, virtual tastings and, online presence, social media, things like that. So we're kind of just trying to, be on both sides of that line. But like I said, it makes it easy when, I feel really strongly about the product and what we do here. And, it's my family. So there's nothing I love more. So like I said, it makes it easy in that way.
Yeah, it's interesting in this kind of full circle, kind of like right what we were talking about before we went live. I was like, oh man. Oh wow. Man, I have a daughter who's almost 5, so oh gosh.
Enjoy her.
I know.
It's special as family.
And this is what's interesting, like we're raised as a family-owned business. You guys are a family-owned business, and the scale of what you do is such that you're never gonna be in a chain grocery store. You know what I mean? I mean, you just can't. Yeah. So it's amazing. I mean, like this is. I mean, to me, the greatest thing about the wine industry is when we do get to deal with like actual family-owned wines from people that make them. The word artisan always seems so trite almost in this sense, but truly an artisan product that's like indicative of the place where it comes from, and you guys really exemplify that. And it's just a pleasure to do business with you, and it's a pleasure. I love these wines, and it's really great.
Thank you.
I'll say this: I've opened your wines with friends that don't necessarily drink wine all the time, people that are collectors and connoisseurs, and I'm confident that there's always going to be a wow factor, and that's what's really great to me. So, thank you guys so much for being part of our first virtual event here at Ray's.
Oh, it's our pleasure, and I want to try Guinness here.
Oh, there he is.
This is my drink, Guinness.
Yeah. Guinness?
Guinness.
Perfect, man. Yeah, I thought I heard him rumbling around there a little bit.
Yeah, he was over here. But thank you so much, Nate.
Yeah. Oh, man, it was beautiful. Well,
and we really, again, appreciate everything Ray's has done for us over the years, and we can't wait to come out next time. We had to postpone a trip, of course, with everything going on. But we'll make it out there soon.
Hey, we're all in this together, and we will get through this. So bless you guys. Thanks so much. I'll remind the folks, I've got everything for sale through the website. If anybody ever has an issue getting into the wines through the site, feel free to call the store. If I've got an out of stock, we'll handle it and take care of that. Either or reach out to myself at nate@rayswine.com. Thanks, Cecily and Gus. Have a great evening. Take care. Be safe. Yep.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye.